Morning, guys. Practically 2:50 in the morning. It's Tuesday. It's the 21st of September 2021. Zero John Zeros, California, yada, 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 yada. I may not be talking about the bugs, but I'll be talking about something almost just as worse than the bug. Politics. Sometimes I just can't stand it, but politics is part of human nature these days. Part of our lives that we didn't even realize. We had to make sure that we had to govern ourselves like crazy. We had to make sure that we were allowing ourselves to be governed. The problem is, a long time ago in studying human history, we never did have a chance. When you have somebody with an ego and power and money and has his own little army, he can actually go out there and harangue himself a territory or two and make himself emperor. We, unfortunately, I got a dead pen. This is a paper knife. You know, it's open. Somewhat right. I'm just making sure because we're going to be using this thing in the trace machine. One with permanent ink, one with eraser. Eraser. Make a line. Erase it. Even better erase its history. A mark, a indelible mark in history. And yet, the impression of it still stays the same. The paper mate, however, is permanent. No matter how much pressure I can put on the damn thing. Well, my God, how about that? It's still paper. How about that? Okay, well, that's good. Because I can still get rid of it. Hey, wonderful. But the impression's still on the damn thing. Anyway. That's your form of government right there. Power of the pen. Try to make it quote-unquote legal, processable, and everything else added to it. Sharing one eraser for two pens. Two lives, two forms of government, two forms of whatever is, but erasable by human history and everything else. And yet the impression of it still remains to this day. The impressions of the emperors and empires and kings and places of rule, they still leave an impression upon us. History has a way of making sure that stays in our human consciousness, our human thought patterns, our history as we record them verbally, as well as the written note. We can try getting rid of the written note or human history, but as long as someone remembers the impression of history, can always recreate it. You ever tried those kind of experiments when you were a young kid? You have an etching, and then you take the carbon of your pencil and you all over the damn paper, rubbing your lead all over the thing until you can find the impression. Some people actually made it into a game. We made it into a game of war, making battle scenes of the thing, or secret messages out of etchings. We've done that too. We take a piece of carbon, get etchings off of things, and we see what's going on. History is never forgotten. It's just hidden, waiting to be discovered. We discover more and more aspects of ourselves. But one of the aspects is how to be of a political nature. The more we keep using the etchings, the more we keep rubbing the pencil on the impressions, the more ugly we find of certain realities that we don't like to face. And we have to deal with this. We've got no choice. Looking at all this stuff scares the hell out of people. Well, it should scare the hell out of us. Because when reality kicks in, and it kicks in hard, we have to make decisions whether or not we're actually going to do stuff or not. And some people are just like, no, 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 I don't want to do that. We got the etchings, we got the proof. What more do you need? No! It's my God, I don't want to do anything about it. I've incurred a wrath of thunder from this character here. I can do character voices like crazy on this damn thing, but it still doesn't solve the situation. You still have the ghost and etchings to deal with. Case in point, old number 45. People worship him still. Been worshiping him for a long while. He didn't move anywhere without the name. And people are trying to be like him, wanted his blessings, and then find out he's a backstabbing bastard. People say, we don't trust Congress, we don't like this, we don't like it. We want our freedom, we want our liberty, we want. Human behavior at this point. Were they like that back then? Probably. Of course, we had our kings, and we didn't have the democratic processes started during the biblical days, did we? No, but we had people coming over here with Word of God telling people, behave or else. And people are like, their ass kicked. Well, if they heard that there was an actual prophet who actually had experience with God's wrath, or God's wrath usually followed after this guy because he was the gloom and doom kind of guy. They're like, oh no, he's coming, he's coming. Behave, behave, behave. A story that I have to deal with, part of it anyway, in college. John and the well, I heard mentions about the story Bible school. And I never quite read the entire thing, all through my adulthood. I just never had covered the Old Testament as much in church. It's always the New Testament. It's always the New Testament. Hardly ever the Old Testament that we needed to cover unless there were some things in there that we actually really needed to cover. Until you have your critical thinking teachers out there who decide they want to tear apart Holy Scriptures left and right, which makes me unsettled. But I'm trying to look at it, and I'm trying to hold a different viewpoint that doesn't really tear me apart of my own faith or my own belief in something greater than myself. And there were certain aspects about the story of Jonah and the whale that made me wonder about my own and how I'm dealing with the class I've got right now, but also with life itself. I have to have a faith and I have to have a trust in something greater than myself. People call it sheep. Maybe. But it's also trying to find a form of strength and courage to continue living, even a minute by minute in life, because we know how fast life can change us, screw things up, or bless us, or something weird. I don't know, maybe something in between that we didn't expect. And I make etchings in my life, my memories, my actions, my words, my deeds. Anything that I have influenced, I have made etchings in the past. So all people have got to do is just take an old carbon lead and color up the paper of the pages of my past and see something. And history is a lot like that. It'll cover up it'll show you the shadows of the images. But it really doesn't cover the entire form and function of what we're dealing with. Case in point, we had a former president recently kicked out because of the 2020 election. Somewhere in there, because of the madness going on with the Conservative Party at the time, turning into Trump and just left and right. I'm wondering whether or not the information is absolutely accurate on this one or not. Because I question it, even though the source or sources are being mentioned in a few news media outlets. It's just getting out there for the past 24 hours. Or actually within the past 12 hours maybe. Is that having a former president conspiring with the vice president, both former, to overthrow an election. Etchings indeed that you wish you hadn't come across. Scrapings of lead into the shapes and creases to create a mosaic that you really didn't want to hear. Six points to overthrow an election. And yet, crickets. Reactions are crickets. Makes me wonder just how much of the etchings we can all take, especially when we keep finding the discarded pages around. And do we have enough lead to fill them up to really look at the ugliness or the weirdness of the whole situations that we're running into? The major reason why I keep going back into college to get more information, basis of it, that even growing up 30 years didn't give me enough. Back then, back in the 80s, I didn't have the information or the context necessary to figure stuff out in life, because I didn't take it for granted. I didn't take advantage of it. I just took it for granted and just bypassed it. I didn't take it into account of American history. I didn't take it into account of American politics even further, because I didn't see those kind of classes. But the thing is, I didn't care at the time. No, I cared about English history. I cared about English literature. I cared about Western civilization, or humanities, what I want to call them. I cared about those kind of things and struggled through them, trying to get a complete dossier in the whole human history thing. If I had the urge to continue on with the education, if I had been keeping up C averages in a lot of them, even with the dreaded algebra, I might have been doing something better with my life, or going for a doctorate or two in something that could make me feel like an expert in it. And yet, watching 30 years of life happening in front of me didn't exactly make me an expert. It just made me missing more and more of the context and perspective I needed. And then again, I was saying the context and perspective being changed left and right in front of my face. And now, since I'm an older fart, I kick myself enough times in the teeth over it. Going through college, second time around. And I'm seeing stuff happening here that even if I actually had underwent the course of study of human history and of human politics, it would not have prepared me for these past 20 years. It didn't prepare anybody for it. The etchings of the past, indeed. Scratchings on a piece of paper, revealing something ugly and hideous to us. No matter how many times we keep using an eraser mate trying to erase the damn ink, it's still there, the impressions. There for people to etch and see what the hell's going on. Even when you push your pencil to the limit and making the impressions, you can still erase the carbon scoring on it. but you're still left the impressions for someone else to make another one on it. And that's how our history is being generated, isn't it? Stuff we don't even like that we're uncovering left and right, that we're shading up a bit to get an image of it, and how we hate the image. Some of us actually revel in it because they think that they have gotten something precious. Some of us actually want to take a big butane and have fun with the damn thing. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. Used correctly, it'll cut one way, but misunderstanding it or trying to put it into a different context will cut you up as well. If you start regretting the living crap out of it. Let's push on anyway. I can't tell you how many paper cuts I've had, how many lemon slices have been used over and sold. No, I'm not Margaritaville here. It's just the acidity of it all. It's just burning the realization into my skin and into my understanding here of life happening. A way to overthrow the electoral government, the electoral college, to keep an established president in office? Is this possible? And yet, it is. Human greed, human ego, pride, hubris, it's all part of us, isn't it? Because of that. Because of that. We have allowed ourselves to be put into situations where we don't even understand what the hell's going on, and still trying to figure that thing out. Me included. Last night I didn't know about the 6-pointer, but the 6 points in the memo regarding how to overthrow a democracy. No wonder the former president liked the other assholes. Putin, Chavez, Kim. And several others I can think of. How to overthrow a democracy. An elected Russian president still does the same damn shit. Still keeps his ass in power. Venezuela. And runs his country into the ground. He tries to keep his power. Starving his country out left and right. We haven't heard anything about Venezuela in a hell of a long while, have we? Have they fallen off the map? They were having revolutionary issues over the past 10 years, so we don't know what the hell happened to these guys. They just disappeared in the news stories. We heard about Iran, and they're ranting and raving, and they're changing the guard. We heard of almost hardly anything about Iraq, and almost nothing about Syria. Afghanistan, we pull out, and everyone else is having a connection fit over the name of crap. China moves in and says, "You're my best bud." Russia tried. Russia failed. When it was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. I screwed up on that one for Afghanistan. But here, the United States would not have become the United States that we know of. Simply put, if there was a plan put in place change our Constitution and our government. It's no wonder that certain people out there are having tendencies of saying how screwed up democracy is, and I have to agree with them. Plato and Aristotle were trying to tell us so. However, without a representative government to make sure that we actually have our voices heard. We are stuck with the bully boy government. One loudmouth, supported by his supporters, running the show. Yeah, we're coming close to that, aren't we? In certain aspects. More and more etchings to be discovered or burned alive. Tear the damn things apart, you can put it back together again with tape. Scotch tape. It looked ugly, but still, you can put it back together again and find out what the picture is. A way of recreating history. And not a pretty picture either. Either way. We're still dealing with the etchings of the past. We're still dealing with the shadows of the images on the papers. We're still dealing with that aspect of ourselves. What we're capable of, what we're terrified of dealing with. And knowing how far democracy could have fallen. It just, they could have gone, people could have gone into Congress during the counting process, torn apart the damn things, and destroyed valuable votes that we have to redo all over again. The vice president could have done that, being suggested by a conservative lawyer, finding a way past the United States Constitution, of tearing apart the Electoral College, tearing apart the paperwork for several states, making sure that votes are going to be invalidated somehow. And somehow through votes in the House of Republicans. Having Congress annul and void the election and make Donald Trump an acting president still past the election point, where he probably would declare martial law. Hearing that this morning, I thought I heard some wild political stories before, and I thought I heard some wild science fiction stories for different things left and right. We keep recycling most of the points, recreated and then recreated again and recreated again. This damn thing's an original. It's worth looking at the Mona Lisa and trying to get her photocopied, and then try to pass her off as a legitimate. But this, have the vice president tear apart a few states' ballots, declaring them invalid, interfering with a process that would make 6 states invalid, and then try to send the whole damn matter over to Congress and let them sort the damn thing out and keep President Trump as the current president before Congress and Supreme Court could figure the whole damn shit out, and then having the whole nation under martial law, under a lockdown. But then again, this was the memo that was being passed around and is being reported. It hasn't been made public until now. Washington Post put it out there, and a few other news media outlets are starting to pick it up. That makes me sick to my stomach. This makes me sick to my stomach that I am seeing our democracy collapsing. If this damn thing actually took place, we would have no voter integrity of any sort. Nearly every conservative state would say we need voter integrity. We need to tightly control everything. Locking other people out from their votes, they're guaranteed the right to vote, they're not the ability to vote. You have the right to vote. But I can't get over there. It's not my problem. But you got the right to vote. I can't mail it. You're not allowed to. I can't get over there. I'm not public transportation. You have to arrange it yourself. But you do have the right to vote. Vote for me. Oh, by the way, this is my district here, not yours. I got the power, you don't. And get my ballot in there, shitty boy. Who says so? I control the whole thing. And this is the kind of thing that we're running into right now. There may be a little bit of a childish skit here, but it demonstrates a point, doesn't it? Gubernatorial elections affected by gerrymandering, redistricting, and changing the voter laws left and right to make sure that a certain party stays in power constantly. But are being voted in because now we have the semblance of democracy. Because democracy, you vote the shit in the first place. Say hello to Russia. Russia 2.0. All we need is political assassination to make it complete. Then we're Russia's boys. I hate to say that, but that's basically how it is turning out to be. We don't want to be socialists. We don't want to be communists. We don't want to be Putin's lackeys. We don't want to be the mirror image, and yet we are. We're turning out to be. A couple more points, and guess what? Left and right. That's how close we came to losing our democracy at this point over here. If we didn't continue with the fight concerning election integrity, and trying to make sure that every vote counted the proper way. That's why we have secretaries of state. That's why we had precinct managers and people making sure that every vote was correct. And other people were trying to change the vote. So yes, we must make sure about voter purity. Voter purity, my ass. We must see everything about the voter. Now imagine having a state looking into every part of the aspect, just to make sure that you're voting the correct way, and the correct person, the correct. Where's freedom now? Where's your freedom? People scream and yell about their freedoms concerning about other situations happening in front of them that they don't have no control over. And yet they want their freedom and they're dropping like flies. The voter integrity, they won't even scream and yell about or march in the streets except it's being prompted by some asshole saying that my vote got stolen. And yet every secretary of states and precinct managers and everybody else involved in the ballot said everything was fine. What conspiracy happened? It's all a lie! Come here, boys and girls. Let's go over to the Capitol over here and let's make our voices known. I'm just going to step over to the side over here. I'm going to be with you over there, but I'm going to step over to the side over here. And in the Capitol situation, but they're good, fine people. They're fine, decent people. Busting in through the windows, busting in through the doors, yelling and screaming their heads off, and not to mention screaming and yelling a hell of a lot of things that should have been deleted off of YouTube and Google, but hadn't been. The only things I hadn't seen is people really desecrating the halls of our Congress. Now, I don't exactly consider them the hallowed halls, but they are hallowed halls because of our Constitution. For us, believe in the Constitution that much, we consider the place sacrosanct, even though they are the place for our elected officials to gather to make the general public's viewpoints known on how to better the country and when that gets threatened, yeah, it does piss me off. It does piss me off, and then especially I would have to be pissed off at people who are counter-protesting and formed a 500-person group that spouted out for days and weeks that they were coming over and protest the arrest of the protesters because they had a civic right to be there and they weren't doing anything except tearing things apart and threatening people's lives. 500, and then we had to have 1,000 cops, law enforcement officers with barricades pulled up. Right now they're all being torn down because of the damn thing happened this past weekend. We expected another riot and we didn't get one. We just had a peaceful protest outside. What's happening to our planet, what's happening to our lives, what's happening to our democracy. It's a day-by-day roller coaster action. Yet the people who keep laughing at us left and right. It's not our own selves in the mirrors, except our neighbors that have laughed at us for years over it because they didn't think democracy would last as long. And yet they try the democracy, and they find like they like the democracy, but not the way we do it. No. Take your political leaders and assassinate them and declare yourself a president. I feel that's the way to do it. Is democracy dying? Is democracy under attack? Personal opinion, yeah. I didn't have to have the news media organizations drill that into me. I could see that for myself. Though I also see my own hometown, my ass, the place where I live. Hometowns where you grew up out of, where you sprang up from. You grew up and mutated from and then left. Or you still reside there because you still have ties to the place. And I don't. I don't have enough ties in this place. Just on rent. But even in this little bit of a spitwad town, they think the elections were rigged. Trump is still king. Trump is God. And Pence, well, Pence should not have been the vice president. And now we got people angling left and right for a better political future for themselves. Another wave that democracy has to hold against. And it depends upon the goodwill of the people that want it so much. The problem is, a lot of people have their own different versions of what democracy is. We have no collective idea. We have our own individual. But we also have misguided areas that we just don't understand what the hell's going on because of the etchings in the paper are not complete or not coherent. We can't see the image properly. We can't see the image properly off the shadings. The shavings that were presented, all the etchings. We can't see it no matter how many times we keep going over it. It's just not clear enough. I wish it were clear. Either we'd be repulsed or else we'd be concerned. The next time you do paper etchings, Keep that in mind. Every time you're doing something in life, you're seeing something in life. You're seeing things happening in the news. You're seeing the etchings being made. Do you have a clear enough picture? Do you have enough lead to cover it? You get a good enough accurate picture of it? Let's hope the picture is more pleasant than what the actual was. But if both aren't, they say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I'm not quite sure if I want to see this particular beauty or not.